Our rights. We need to learn how to exercise our rights whether they, the government, want us to or not. Or there's the Thomas Jefferson version of that exact same thing. He said, back in 1798, the several states composing the United States of America are not united on a principle of unlimited submission to their general government. And I'm paraphrasing, of course. He said, whensoever the general government assumes undelegated powers, its acts are unauthoritative, void, and of no force. And a nullification of the act is the rightful remedy. What I always find interesting about that Jefferson thing is that he said it was the rightful remedy. Notice he didn't say, okay, vote the bums out in 2012, and maybe 2010 or 2014, and if that doesn't play out too well, then nullify it. He also didn't say, well, maybe sue them, sue the federal government in the federal court, in the hopes that the federal judges will limit federal power. And then if that doesn't work, then nullify. No, he said, any time the federal government violates your rights by taking powers that have not been delegated to it in the Constitution, the rightful remedy. You're supposed to stand up and say no. We're not supposed to wait 2 or 4 or 6 years for someone to ride in on a white horse and save us in an election. We're not supposed to wait however long it takes to get to the Supreme Court so 9 people in black dresses can tell us we have permission to exercise our rights. We're supposed to exercise them whether they want us to or not. Does anybody here know who Roscoe Filburn was?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, some of you. We got 2. Roscoe was a farmer in Ohio, maybe. If I'm wrong, then I'm sorry for the YouTube. Roscoe was a farmer back in the 1930s. And at the time, our great freedom-loving president, FDR. Yeah, that was a joke. Nice. There's a joke, yeah. Well, the FDR administration came up with this rule that said, I don't know, and I think they were just trying to help out the big wheat lobby, but what they were telling farmers were that you were only allowed to grow a particular amount of wheat, and after that you had to stop. So I think it was like 10 acres of wheat. This was while, mind you, height of the Great Depression, people were hungry and starving, and they were limiting food production here in the United States. That's a lesson on what government does for you. So Roscoe had the great idea that, well, you know, the Constitution says that the federal government can do stuff like this if it's in interstate commerce. It can create rules or regulations about interstate commerce. So what he did was he grew his 10 acres of wheat and sold it on the open market. Then he thought, well, my farm animals are hungry. I'm going to grow another 10. So he did. And he was told, burn it. But his view was that, well, you know, this is intrastate commerce. The federal government is not authorized to do this. He went all the way to the Supreme Court in a real famous court ruling, Roscoe versus Filburn. Those 9 black-robed deities, those guys in dresses, said that the federal government, if you grew a plant in your backyard and consumed it in your backyard and you never bought or sold that plant, that was somehow interstate commerce, and they could fine you, put you in jail, or tell you to burn that plant. Well, because it was an emergency, so many people turned a blind eye to it, and they sat around and let it go. Well, John Adams warned us about this type of thing, and he said many years ago, pretty many years ago, he said, liberty once lost is lost forever. That doesn't mean we're all screwed. The lesson to be learned, though, is that when you allow, because of an emergency, or for some reason, they always have some emergency or threat, government to take additional power, they're never just going to volunteer and give it back. Oh yeah, well we've had to grope you because bin Laden is a threat, so now that he's dead, well, we're going to stop those TSA scanners. That's not the way it works. And the Patriot Act came in, and we've had 5 elections, and the Patriot Act still exists. They're not going to voluntarily throw it back. Adams was telling us that it always required a long struggle of the people to regain any powers that they decided to kind of let go. So needless to say, that Filburn thing has been coming back to haunt people for many years. And if anyone knows who Angel Rach is, we're in California. Angel, nice.
Yeah.
Angel's a Northern California. Mike's heard my speech before, so that's unfair.
No, I read it in Reason.
Angel is a Northern Californian up near where John lives, and she had a softball or baseball-sized cancer tumor in her brain. And because of the 1996 Prop 215 that allows the crazy Californians to use weed, she and her doctor determined that the best thing for her was to smoke some cannabis. So some friends of hers, I guess, helped her grow some in the backyard. She never purchased the stuff. She never bought it or sold it or anything. She had 6 plants in her backyard, decided to use it. Well, the ever-protecting DEA, well, they came to her home and destroyed the stuff. I mean, you can picture this. Here's a woman with serious cancer, and you've got these armed guards, armed thugs, coming in and stomping out her plants because she was a danger to society or something. So this went all the way to the Supreme Court as well. In 2005, it was Gonzalez versus Raich. They once again said, if you grow a plant in your backyard and you consume it in your home and you don't buy it or sell it, this is somehow interstate commerce. And they can mess with you whether you have cancer or you're dying or whatever. So they don't care about the rights of the people in California to do this. And the interesting thing, I don't know if you guys recall when this happened, but the 3 states that came, maybe it was 2 states that came to the defense of the people in California on this one the most were Mississippi and Alabama, no left-wingy states. They basically said, and they're super conservative down there, they said, hey, we don't agree with their policy, but if they want to do it, it's their right. And that's the type of message that we present on every issue. Whether it's weed, or guns, or healthcare, or anything else, the federal government, I guess the way you put it is, we, the people of the several states, we created the federal government to be our agent for certain enumerated or listed purposes, and nothing more.
That's cool.
So what's the lesson about these 2 little stories? I believe that we have far too many partisan constitutionalists or partisan liberty lovers. So people on the right have so rightly, for many years, railed against what the FDR administration did. But when it was the exact same principle applied to weed, oftentimes you hear conservatives saying, well, I don't like that. And they're not being consistent by saying the same thing that I was just saying a minute ago, that all power other than that which has been delegated in the Constitution should be kept close to home in our states or by the people themselves. And that's why our slogan is pretty straightforward at the 10th Amendment Center. Stuart mentioned it briefly, but it's the Constitution, every issue, every time, no exceptions, and no excuses. This message that we're bringing, it's not about political parties or political ideologies or political anything. It's about liberty. It's about limiting government. The founders believed that government was always dangerous, and the best way to protect liberty was to strictly limit what it can do. And I may not have been in as many interviews as John has been in, but over the last couple of years, I've been interviewed by dozens and dozens and dozens of mainstream media sources. And every single time, whether it's CNN or Fox or New York Times, they always ask me the same thing. Unfortunately, Rachel Maddow doesn't call me at all. If you guys know, a few weeks ago, she spent about 15 minutes railing on that evil 10th Amendment Center about how racist they are and they hate America for promoting this idea of nullification and decentralization. But for everyone that does call, they all ask the same question. They say, what political party do you support? I give them the stock answer. The 10th Amendment Center is a nonpartisan think tank that stands for the Constitution, every issue, every time, no exceptions or excuses. And they respond, well, what about you, Michael? You're the founder of the organization. How about you? We want to get a feel for what direction you're pushing the organization. And my answer is none. I don't support any political party. I don't think they believe me, but it's true. I'm not a conservative, or a liberal, or a Republican, or a Democrat, or a libertarian, or an anarchist, or a green, or a socialist, or anything in between. I'm not even an independent. That's my girlfriend. All I am is me, and all I want is to live free. Thank you all for joining me.